The distributive property. So the distributive property really is based upon parentheses. So I have an expression in a set of parentheses. I'm multiplying that set of parentheses by a number, by a factor. I'm going to distribute that factor to each of the terms inside the parentheses. So here I've got A, I'm multiplying that by, on top of B plus C. I'm going to do the A times the B and come up with AB. I'm going to add that to the A times the C and get AC. So these expressions are equal to each other. AB plus AC is the same thing as A times B plus C in parentheses. This is how our distributive property works. So now we're going to see it in a few different examples, getting slightly more complicated as we go. All right, this basic one really is what we're doing when we're combining like terms. So if I have two terms, I have 5C plus 3C. I notice that they have a variable in common. They've got a factor in common. I can take that out. So I'm basically, this is what I call undistributing. I'm taking the C out of them. I'm dividing them both by C. So 5C divided by C gives me 5. 3C divided by C gives me 3. And I'm left with that 5 plus 3 in parentheses, multiplying it by C. They both have a factor of C. 5 plus 3 gives me 8. So 5C plus 3C is equal to 8C. I'm not expecting you to show these steps. You should be able to go from 5C plus 3C equals 8C without this middle part, but I want you to see that's really what you're doing. You're really doing the distributive property to combine like terms. All right, let's take a look at our distributive property, how we're used to seeing it. So if I have 2 and then parentheses 8 plus 4n, everything that's inside the parentheses needs to get multiplied by that 2 that's outside. Make sure you combine like terms inside your parentheses first if you can. If there's any simplifying to do inside your parentheses, do that before you distribute. So this is where these kind of arrows shooting all over the place, the rainbow arrows, come into effect here. 2 times 8 is 16, and 2 times 4n is 8n. These are not like terms, so I can't combine them any further, so I'm done. The simplified version of this expression is 16 plus 8n. One more, I have negative 3, and then in parentheses, 2 plus 5q, close the parentheses, plus 2q. So notice I've got q's all over the place here. I want to end up with an expression that has as few of them as possible, hopefully just one expression with one q in one of the terms. So first let's deal with the parentheses as always. There's nothing to do inside the parentheses. 2 plus 5q are not like terms. I can't add them together. I'm going to deal with this negative 3 in front of the parentheses first. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 times 5q is negative 15q. I can write that as plus a negative 15q or minus 15q. They are the same expression. And then this plus 2q just comes along for the ride for the moment. Now I look at this and realize that I do have like terms. The negative 15q and the 2q are like terms because they both have q. Remember, like terms have to have exactly the same variables in them. So if this is q and this is qs, I can't put them together because they're not exactly the same. So think about them like a word. They have to be exactly the same to combine them. So I can combine the negative 15q plus the 2q, and I get negative 6 plus negative 13q, or I could rewrite that as negative 6 minus 13q. These are the same. This is a little simpler way to write it because there's less to write, but they are both equal to the same expression. All right, let's look at a couple more that get a little trickier. So E, 2, I skipped D for some reason. That's all right. We'll go straight to E. 2 plus 9, and then parentheses, negative 7w minus 5. What I want you to notice here, like we've talked about before, be careful with order of operations that we don't try to do that 2 plus 9 first. That 9 is stuck to the parentheses, and order of operations says I have to do parentheses first. It also says I have to do multiplication first. So for multiple reasons, I have to deal with that 9 first. I can't do anything with the 2 just now. That addition is going to come at the end of simplifying this expression. Negative 7w minus 5, nothing I can do inside the parentheses there. I can distribute this 9, however. 9 times negative 7w is negative 63w. 9 times negative 5 is negative 45. So now I can look at this and say I have some like terms here. 2 and negative 45 are alike, so I can put those together. So I have negative 63w. 2 minus 45 gives me negative 43. Nothing else I can do with that. It's done. Last one, negative 6x minus negative 7x minus 6, and then in parentheses, 8 plus 3x, close those parentheses. Again, we've got in front of these parentheses here a -6. Please make sure you note that that 6 is a negative. That minus sign goes with the 6. An operation always tells you what is always connected to what's after it. If you need to, feel free to change that to adding the opposite to remind yourself that it's -6, not 6, and then you just kind of slap subtraction on it when you're done. It's not going to work that way. So we're going to do -6 times 8, which gives me -48. -6 times 3x, which gives you -18 x. Now we have some like terms here, the -7x and the -18x. We can put those together. We'll get -48 minus 25x, and that's the simplest version. There's nothing else that we can do to combine like terms there or deal with order of operations. We're done.